This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, Rock and Roll High School is celebrating its 40th anniversary. Yes, it's been 40 years since Riff Randall terrorized the school and caused a rebellion. And folks, I have Coach Steroid herself on the phone. I have the lovely, the talented Alix Elias on the phone. How do you do, Alix?
Hi. I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. I'm happy to be talking to you.
Oh, great.
How are things where you're at? The weather fine?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. The last few days, it has rained a little bit, but it's after a hot summer. It's just been delightful.
Yes, it's been rainy here this morning, so.
Oh.
Yeah, oh well. Such is life.
What is that? Can't change weather or whatever that saying is.
Nope, you can't. What do you think of this Rock and Roll High School celebrating its 40th anniversary? I would have been 7 years old when that came out.
Really? It doesn't seem that long to me, but it was a very sort of confused period. I had just recently, I didn't exactly move to L.A., but I started coming to L.A. for extended periods of time and, doing a lot of TV and that kind of stuff. But I wasn't really, I knew Paul Bartel. Paul Bartel was sort of a friend of mine. He had originally wanted me, I met him through a friend of mine who's a film publicist,
okay,
Silverman, and they were friends. They were real friends. And he was interested in me for a very early film that he was trying to get together that kind of revolved around happenings. It was that long ago. And that didn't work out. He couldn't get the funding. He later made it with somebody else. And but he stayed in touch with me. I guess he was a fan of my work or whatever. And I would see him very occasionally. He'd take me out to dinner, or he'd make dinner or something, which was a real treat because I never had any money. And so anyway, I got involved with Rock and Roll High School through Paul. Paul had been working for Roger Corman as a director, but one of the things that Roger Corman would do, they had a very low opinion of actors, and instead of in these little films, although there were just thousands and thousands of actors in LA who would just die to be in any film, what they would use is like the office boy or the secretary or one of the directors who wasn't working. If they had a part, they'd put them in, and then they would get SAG medical insurance and SAG various benefits that they would get. And they didn't care about the acting. But it turned out that Paul was kind of a natural. So he had been a director with Roger Corman and acting sometimes in his own stuff. But he had this kind of wacky charm. And so Roger Corman started using him to be in these various cheap films that he was making, of which Rock and Roll High School was one. Because he didn't have any respect for these films. it was just money to him. All his respect and all his admiration went into these exotic foreign films which he considered art.
Okay.
We weren't art. We were just garbage to make some money. And so anything that he could do, cheap. He never paid more than scale, I don't think. But for the directors, and it wasn't just Paul. It was a lot of these directors. He just called them up, and they could play the clerk in the, in the jail, or the policeman give me a ticket, or whatever they needed. And so what happened on this particular film that Alan was directing was it was already cast. They were shooting it. and the girl playing Ms. Steroid, and they'd already shot some of her stuff, quit because she got a real job. I mean, she got a real acting job. I mean, something with some prestige to it. So she left them flat. And
Okay.
and Paul called me up, and he said, "Oh, I know an actress. She's in New York, from New York. That was kind of a big deal. You were from New York, and let me see if she'll do it." So he called me up, and I didn't even know. I'm not sure if I knew who Roger Corman was, and my agents didn't want me to do it. I mean, they thought. Everybody thought that working for Roger Corman was a real low, slumming. And but a job's a job.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, sure. So the reason that part is so odd, it's just in a couple of scenes, is because there was more to it. But they had to drop all that footage because the other Ms. Steroid walked out on them.
Why couldn't they just reshoot with you?
Well, to a certain extent, they did.
Okay.
That's what they did. But another thing about these films is they were made really fast.
Was it Roger Corman, you said, that preferred the foreign art films and treated actors? Okay, all right.
That was his passion. And he was the one who brought, I believe, if I'm not wrong, he brought over all those early Swedish films, the Bergman films.
Okay.
And I think Knife in the Water, which was, I forget what that was, Hungarian or something. He brought those, I mean, we wouldn't have known about those, or they wouldn't have been as popular if he hadn't brought them over from Europe. And, of course, he could get them for a song as well. A lot of it was about money.
Yeah.
But the one thing that he really admired and was really just kind of his passion were these foreign art films, which he brought to America with the money that he made making cheesy exploitation films, like,
Yeah.
several of the ones that I ended up being in.
Yeah.
But he had a stable of directors, of whom Jonathan Demme was one, and Paul was one, and what's his name? Dante was one, and Alan. And they were usually very young or unknown or just out of film school or whatever, because they were cheap.
Yeah.
They were cheap. They'd work cheap, and then also they would be, he'd get them to, I don't know, answer the phone or, do this little part or whatever. So he had a whole setup of these various people that worked for him. And I wasn't really a part of that. I was just a friend of Paul's.
Okay.
I was just somebody that Paul knew. And it didn't follow through. I did one other Roger Corman film called Munchies.
Okay.
Again, through a contact through Paul. The director of that was another friend of Paul's whom I'd met, I think socially. Tina, I can't even think of her last name.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I wasn't really part of that world. At that point, I was doing... my agents certainly didn't want me involved in it. Not that I listened to them, but they were trying to get me into more mainstream stuff, and I started doing a fair amount of TV and a couple of movies here and there. So, but it was fine with me. I thought there was something interesting. I mean, certainly there were some very talented people in that bunch of filmmakers. And then they would move on. They'd do some of these films, and then they'd move on to bigger and better projects. And, nobody was there for life, you know what I mean? I mean, they, too, were looking for their opportunity in the entertainment business. And so that's how I happened to be in it. So they didn't have the time to go back and reshoot everything that this other actress had been in. And the other sort of problem with the plot, such as it was that the entire faculty was three people. It was the gym teacher, the art teacher. Paul played the art teacher, and Mary Warnoff, who played the principal. So whenever there was like a faculty meeting, there were only 3 people. And it was, it was like that. And they were just speeding along. They were going so fast, and they were under a whole lot of pressure and to finish this thing up. So anyway, I said I'd do it, and I show up, and, nobody tells me anything. I mean, it's just a massive confusion. I knew the Ramones were going to be in it, and I had heard of the Ramones.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of hoped that, they might be there. But again, when you're doing a movie, I mean, you don't necessarily meet it's not like being in a play where you meet the cast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in this case, I never met them. They weren't there. And I wasn't, they were sort of a curiosity. And I thought, this might be interesting. I wasn't a big fan of punk rock.
Okay.
Grunge. I mean, it was okay. I think I'd been to CBGB's once or something because a girlfriend of mine was waitressing there. But it was really loud, and you couldn't understand the words, and basically it wasn't my, it was more like adolescent boys. Love the Ramones. So I show up, and I'm kind of trying to get my sea legs and figure out what's going on, I don't even know if I'd gotten an entire script. No, I did get a script. I did give it a script, but I don't think I had a chance to read it. So they started shooting, and, the whole cast was very stressed out. And then the second day, I arrived, and as I pulled up, there was an ambulance leaving the set. We were shooting on some, school, football field or something like that. And I said to somebody, "What's that? Who's that?" And they said, "That's the director. He had a heart attack." And this is the second day.
Oh.
Okay. It turned out, actually, if you talk about, he didn't have a heart attack. He had some kind of an anxiety attack. I don't know what he had. But suddenly he was, couldn't breathe, and they called the ambulance because they were afraid he was having a heart attack. So here we are in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in greater L.A., with no director, and they said, "That's okay. We'll get the second unit. The second unit is filming on this football field. Joe Dante. We'll get the second team."
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that point, Joe Dante, who ended up becoming a big deal, was doing, background. I mean, he was shooting the back of the second unit. That's like, the crowd scenes, and I mean, that would be typical of Corman because he would use whatever director, he wasn't shooting a feature, and he'd, sandbag them in to shoot the background stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe Dante comes up, and we had shot the day before, and I was wearing, like certain items of clothing, and so I said to him, "Hi, I'm Alix Elias." I said, "Do you, what we're going to shoot today, is it the same day? Am I wearing the same clothes? Do I need a wardrobe?" And he said, "Give me a break, Alex." He said, "I've only read the script once." And I said, "I've only read the script once." Or maybe I hadn't even read it, I mean, I'd read the scenes or whatever. So, I mean, it was just a mess. So then we shot the rest of the week, I guess. I think Alan eventually came back. But, so Joe Dante shot, a big chunk of that film, for which he probably got no credit. I mean, he probably got the second unit credit, director credit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we were all surprised and taken aback. And then, think about Mary. I knew Mary. Mary never liked me. She doesn't like women. And but we were the faculty, so we had to do those scenes.
Yeah.
Where there were faculty meetings and stuff. Oh, they were going to blow up the school. Part of the reason they shot this film was that they found out that this school in L.A. was going to be torn down. They were going to blow it up.
Okay.
And so they thought, great, we'll do a film, and we can get this cheap, so that's what they did. And that was the big deal. This was their big special effect.
Yep.
The trouble with a lot of special effects stuff is it looks better than the real thing. I did another movie like that where they were using a balloon. Like with a basket underneath with people in it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look as good as when they do a special effect because they can control that.
Mm-hmm.
So the school blowing up was kind of a dud, but they used it anyway. And I must say, I thought Mary looked terrific.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of all I remember about it until it came out and started, getting a lot of attention. And I think part of it was the Ramones, but they were in it so briefly. They just come in and kind of do a number. I mean, I'll tell you, it's been years since I've seen this. I haven't seen it for like 20 years or
It's been days since I've seen it.
Oh, really? But, yeah, I remember how excited they were about the school blowing up, and then it was kind of like ho-hum.
Yeah.
So what else can I tell you? I didn't get to know anybody very well on the set. I knew Paul. Through Paul, I had a
Tell me,
connection with Mary.
Did
What?
Paul connect with you through ear mail?
Ear mail.
Remember the paper airplane scene where it goes through the air and then it ends up in his ear?
Oh, yeah, kind of vaguely. No, I think that was in there.
No, I'm saying, did he contact you through ear mail?
Through ear mail, no. No, he just called me on the phone. Unless I was staying there. It was a couple times I stayed in his apartment.
Mm-hmm.
He had an extra bedroom, and I didn't really have an apartment. Well, at one point I did, but most of the years I was in L.A. I almost commuted from New York to L.A. for about 25 years, and I would very often I would just find another place. Every time I went out there, I'd be somewhere else. So, you stayed with friends, you house sat. One time I switched apartments, and a couple of those times I stayed with Paul. And then Paul made, the movie that made him all the money, the Eating Raoul.
Mm-hmm.
And he bought a house. He had been living in an apartment in West Hollywood, and he bought a house, very cute little house up on the Hollywood Hills. And so I never stayed with him after that. Well, we did have dinner.
Well, you were part of the faculty.
What?
You were the two people on the faculty besides...
That's right, we were. My God, no wonder that school was such a mess. And the thing is, music and gym. I mean, there was no science, no math, no English. Where were they?
Well, there was during the chaotic opening number. You do have a French teacher, trying to settle them down. So,
well, maybe that was another one that quit. I mean, people used to walk out on him because he paid so badly.
Yeah.
So people didn't really have. I mean, the directors had more loyalty to him because they would work. They knew that they could get more work out of him. But he didn't treat the actors well. And so they thought nothing of... I mean, for example, I guess I probably had some sort of a contract, but it was more like a handshake. It was like, Paul, well, show up tomorrow and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got there, I guess there was some sort of paperwork. But, he might also have been paying us a daily as a day players, which was cheaper.
Okay.
And then hiring you for the whole movie, in which case they'd have to pay you whether you worked or you didn't. Where if it's a day rate, they just pay you for the days you're actually there. something like that.
Okay.
So that also doesn't protect them in case you get another job. You know, you can just walk, which is, I gather, what happened with the first Ms. Steroid and probably with some of the other actors.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might have just done that day or two and then gone on and gotten other work or whatever they did, you know, because he didn't have a hold on them legally. You know, he didn't have a contract necessarily. I mean, I'm sure he did with the bigger parts. And then I never really got to know them. You know, the one girl, PJ Souls, we might have shared a dressing room or something like that. Anyway, I did talk briefly to her, and I gathered she was in
Halloween.
What?
She was
in the original Halloween. She got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And
she was in Carrie as well.
She was.
Yeah.
I wondered what had happened to her because, you know, she was really a nice person, and it seemed like one of those LA actresses who'd been working as a teenage, you know, for years. She's been in the business, and very often they don't, you know, go on, but sometimes they do. I don't know. Did she go on and act a lot after that?
Yeah, she did Stripes. Okay. She did Stripes with Bill Murray. She was in Private Benjamin with Goldie Hawn.
Good for her.
And she's still working. She's just not in the high-profile projects, but I mean, she's seen briefly in Devil's Rejects with for Rob Zombie, but you know, she's still around. I would love to get her on here. I always loved PJ Souls.
Well, she'd probably love to do it if you can just get to her.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem, I guess, is finding. How did you find me?
Through Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But PJ, I heard a story that she got, I think it was Halloween where they found her. They liked her in Halloween or whatnot. And I'm not sure the details of the story, but I guess she made or bought her own clothes for that movie so that it would cut down on cost or something like that. Because she was in 2 big hit movies before that, so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of times those little movies were just operating on a knife edge, you know, of, you know, whether they could get through it or not, and it was really important, saving money. So, anyway, that's the story. That's everything I can think of. Do you have any questions?
Well, you know, for the time you spent with PJ, what was your interaction like?
Well, we were, you know, as I said, it was a very stressful, high-stress situation. I came in the middle of it, and so I was kind of an outsider, and I was just trying to, you know, figure out what was going on. So I think we shared a dressing room or a trailer or something like that. Anyway, we were, I mean, she was very, very nice. You know, she, you know, introduced herself, reached out to me, and which was kind of her because, you know, I was coming in and confused. And, you know, when you have a project which is, you know, in difficulty, it has a tendency to pull everybody together.
You know, Coach Steroid was kind of confused, though.
Well, that's probably an organic moment. You probably be going like, what am I doing here?
I like that scene in the gym where you're getting them all to do... Yeah, Mary Warnoff comes in there and says, they shouldn't be exercising their bodies, they should be exercising their minds. And you look at Paul Bartel, she's crazy.
Yeah, well, Mary.
But that scene in the gym, like I've had Day Young on here too before. She played Kate Rambo, PJ Souls' sidekick in the movie, and
was she the one that climbed up the rope?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. She was very sweet.
Yeah, I like her. She does sculptures now. She still acts, but she does sculpting as well. Yeah.
Artist, yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, she's really pleasant. But, yeah, I had them on there, and But you had that scene, of course, you're playing that really, really bad music. And none of them want to do jumping jacks, do it.
The jumping jacks.
What were your memories of that day shooting that scene?
Well, that was with Dante, I believe.
Was he doing jumping
Dante.
jacks too?
He was directing that day. So, I think that was the day that he was shooting, because that was the day I had the most to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we did all the scenes in the gym.
Yeah.
And that was that same school where they were shooting on the football field, and they went out and got him to come back in and direct. It just, it kind of goes by in a whirl, because it was so, it was just a really high-stress situation.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of start playing it by instinct, because you don't really know the backstory. You may not even really know the story, the plot particularly. And also on these kind of films, they often change things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, well, we can't get the school blowing up. Well, we'll go out on a boat, I mean, everybody's operating on a, everybody's very tense. But they're also, their minds are kind of like speeding along, because you've got to keep on top of things. Yeah, I liked both of them. I never saw either one of them again. But again, I wasn't really in that social set, you might say.
Yeah.
I didn't. It was just kind of a fluke. I did another Roger Corman film, also because of Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really do horror movies or anything like that, or these. I don't know what you call rock and roll high school. I mean, what would you call it? I mean, it's
musical comedy.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess you could call it a musical comedy.
I like that scene where you and Paul are in Mary's office, and she's got the rockometer, and she blows up the little mouse. They're playing the Ramones too loud, and she has all these bands listed on it.
It's all coming back to me.
You got the two hall monitors, they're trying to answer the question. She goes, "Go monitor the halls." And they walk out disappointed. She says,
wonder if, Mary's still around. I saw her walking down Fifth Avenue about a year ago. She was coming to some sort of, she's also an artist.
Mm-hmm, I know.
Good. I've seen some of her paintings, and I think she was coming to some art event or something. But she didn't move back here. I think she was just here for, briefly for this event. But have you been able to reach her?
No, I haven't. I'd love to get her. It's funny. You said something about her not liking women?
Well, maybe it's just me she didn't like. I mean, I got the impression. She was actually friends with Tina, who directed Munchies.
Okay.
They were chums.
Well, it's interesting because last year at Horrorama, which is a horror film convention in Toronto, I met the gorgeous Lynn Laurie, who and she had a Blu-ray there of a film I hadn't seen called Sugar Cookies, and there was a lot of nudity in it, but I picked it up. Got her to sign it because she and Mary Warnoff were both in it, and it's like, wow, I want to see what you two are like in a movie together. And when you said she didn't like women, well, I gotta tell you, she does some pretty skin deep scenes with Lynn in that movie. I'll tell you that.
Well, she's fearless. I think that's a great look.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she just photographs like $1 million.
Oh, yeah, and I love that hair she had as Miss Togar.
I mean, she even looked good in the helmet,
Oh, yeah.
And on the bullhorn. I remember that. I remember her on the bullhorn.
Speaking of which, another guy I interviewed from the movie, and I almost forgot he was in it, and I got him on the show 5 months before he passed away. I got Dick Miller. who played the chief of police.
Oh, yeah. I didn't have any scenes with him.
Yeah.
I don't think I actually met him. But, of course, I saw him in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he passed away this past January, and I was like, man, just 5 months prior I had him on my show. Yeah. He lived a good life, though. He was 90 years old, so.
Wow, 90.
Yep. So I was glad I reached out when I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But no, Rock and Roll High School, though, had a lot of interesting people in it, Don Steele, of course, is Screamin' Steve.
Well, that was probably, whoever put that together, maybe it was Alan. I mean, when you interviewed him, I mean, he probably cast it.
Yeah. Clint Howard playing Eaglebauer, Vincent Van Patten. You had so many great casting, and of course, who could forget the people in the mice costumes, Alan Arkush letting them in if they had headphones. Well, Alan Arkush, I never heard that he had a panic attack, and I've had him on here twice,
well,
so.
I guess he wasn't really, it wasn't something he was, happy about. And, and it turned out to be a false alarm. Well, in a sense, it was a false alarm. Because it wasn't a heart attack, but he had some kind of difficulty. I think he had difficulty breathing. And, they didn't dare take a chance. So,
yeah.
But he probably, I hope I'm not, embarrassing him. I mean, to me, it was just such a, I was just so taken aback my second day coming into this film, which has already been shooting for a month, and the director's being taken out in an ambulance, it was just like, oh my God.
Well, it is rock and roll high.
And then it worked out really well for him. I worked for him again. I did an episode of a series he was shooting in New York called Central Park West with Ron Liebman and one of the Hemingway girls, and which didn't make it, unfortunately, but they had a wonderful I guess maybe he just has good taste in actors,
Yeah.
Because it was really nice to see him. And then somebody put me in touch with him. Somebody contacted me, I guess some stranger on Facebook, thinking we knew each other. And then it turned out we had a connection through Alan. And I think I've sent him a little message on Facebook or something like that.
Okay.
And that was the only time. Well, and he didn't respond, so I wasn't sure, if it had reached him or not. Every time I do something on the internet, I'm never really confident that it gets. You want me to tell you something? Out to the void. What?
Facebook, they often filter messages. So, when I reached out to you because you weren't on my friends list, you would have to look in the filter messages to. Maybe you did get it right away. I don't know. I've had guests
on Messenger is what.
Messenger. That's exactly what I mean. Like I've had a guest last year contact me after I messaged him a year prior.
Wow.
Yeah, I still had him on. I was happy to have him. He was very apologetic that he hadn't seen this, but. Like if I took to me, I think people should get their messages, and if they don't want to read them, just delete the message, But
yeah, that just seems to make more sense. But
you
did. I did get your message, but the thing is, I don't always look on Messenger. The only reason I'm looking on Messenger is because my husband's singing teacher communicates with him that way, and my niece doesn't have an email account or doesn't use it, so it's the only way I can reach her. So then I see if there's other messages, but I often don't open them if it's not somebody I know. I don't know why I opened yours, but anyway, I did, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, I don't bite.
What?
I don't bite.
You don't bite. What part of Canada are you in?
I'm in New Brunswick. I'm 4 hours ahead of LA, but I'm 1 hour ahead of you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're up by the Great Lakes, sort of?
I don't know. New Brunswick is kind of we're very close neighbors with Nova Scotia. So
I was going to say, Nova Scotia would be my next guess.
Yeah. I think our biggest celebrities are the Trailer Park Boys. So if you're familiar with them,
no.
Oh, but you did have one other big scene in Rock and Roll High School where PJ Souls and Day Young are going down the hall, and you go, "What's that thing in your ear, Randall?" And she's pretended to be deaf.
Oh.
You go, "Kids."
What was it? She had like a
headphones. Earbuds. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know my part better than I do. That's all I can say. I mean, it's.
I'm here to catch you up in case Alan Arkish gives you a quiz.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Who knows? Maybe someday he'll answer my my message on Messenger. But anyway, I wish him the best. I hope. I'm glad to hear he's still working.
Oh yeah, I've had him on here twice, and
good.
very, very passionate about what he does as well. Yeah. One other film.
Mm-hmm.
One other film I got to bring up to you. That I've interviewed David L. Lester, of course, who was famous as playing Squiggy in Laverne and Shirley. And he did not like this film, but I want to hear your opinion, was Pandemonium.
Pandemonium.
Yeah. Directed by Alfred Soule.
Describe it. What's it about?
Oh, it's a major slapstick comedy. It's got Tom Smothers, Carol Kane.
Oh, in it?
Oh my goodness. Well, I hope so. It's on your Internet Movie Database.
Oh, do you know what I played?
Oh, gee, I'm going to see if I can find you. This is funny, actually.
You gotta realize sometimes these jobs, you just...
Oh, it says you play Joe the Fry Cook.
Oh, I remember that.
Okay.
I never saw that movie.
I think David L. Lander wishes he didn't.
I had a, what do you call it? I had a tattoo on my arm.
Oh.
I drew a tattoo on my arm.
Okay.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. I was in one of those little trailers that sells hot dogs or something. And,
okay.
And tootling around. I never saw the movie, so I have no idea.
Okay.
Well,
let me see.
It's, again, I mean, that must have been quite a while ago.
That was 1982.
Okay.
Now, you are listed for Married with Children, my all-time favorite sitcom.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yes, I did. I had a little recurring role on, this is another thing my agents didn't want me to do. I had a little recurring role on that, playing one of the wives, the friends of the, the main wife. What's her name? Katie.
Yeah.
And we would come and sit around the living room and eat and criticize the husbands.
Okay,
While the husbands were out in the garage getting into trouble or whatever they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was about it. I think that show was underrated.
I love it.
Yeah. It was, I mean, there was one where the husband's something's wrong with the garage or something, or it burnt up or something like that, and the husbands decide to move to the roof. And they move to the roof, and they bring up a barbecue thing, and they're making hamburgers, and one of them is sort of surreptitiously peeing off the edge. I mean, it was hilarious. And I thought to myself, this is an off-Broadway play. I mean, you could take this episode and you could make a really darling little, off-Broadway play, because it had all these surreal elements to it, but it was funny. And I didn't really get to know anybody terribly well on that show, although I was kind of, every now and then they'd have me come in. And later on, I was watching a documentary about it, and I think the original guys, the creative team, was really bright.
Yep.
I mean, I think it was ahead of its time. Everybody thought, again, it was just a sort of cheap entertainment, but it was really ahead of its time, and it's never been off the air.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every 3 or 4 months, I'll get another residual check for like $17 or something like that, or sometimes it's like 3 cents. But it's still out there, chugging along.
You were another sitcom I loved too, Night Court.
Yes, I like Night Court too.
Mm-hmm.
They had some wonderful actors on Night Court,
Yeah.
and I think I did a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
I recall. Yeah, wonderful actors, interesting scripts. Yeah, I thought it really deserved its success.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? Because I know you said you had some
Well,
projects.
I'm still acting. Actually, I just shot a small part on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped doing theater. I just somehow I kind of thought I'd had it, and it's just a big time investment for not a lot of money. So basically I've been doing television and a little bit of film, and I moved back to New York. I gave up the whole LA thing about, I guess it was 10 years ago or 15, something like that, and moved back to New York, and I've just been doing whatever comes up here. But I am doing I'm making a web series. My husband and I did a cabaret show called Bad For You,
Mm-hmm.
which is, it's all songs about things that are bad for you, like, smoking, drinking, dope, falling in love with the wrong person, high cholesterol food. And I wrote a little show, and we have a trio called The Food of Love. And so we called the show The Food of Love is Bad For You. And now we're making a web series out of it, which is the first 6 episodes are just about done. And you can find it. You can Google The Food of Love Trio with no spaces in between, and it'll take you to the, I think it'll take you to the Facebook page or YouTube. You can go to YouTube and look up The Food of Love Trio, or you can Google The Food of Love Trio, all one word, and see clips. And we did an Indiegogo, which worked out okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a reality show, but kind of like most reality shows. It's scripted, and it's fun. It's really a lot of fun. So that's what I'm working on right now. My editor is going to come over at 11 in 15 minutes, and we're putting it together, and then we're going to try to see if we can get some sponsors or grants or whatever to do a second season. We're shooting, this is so hilarious. I wrote this episode about my husband's singing teacher.
Okay.
Is a real character, and when she's not touring or whatever she's doing, she has this job as a tour guide in Manhattan. And I thought this is so funny that I went up and I wrote this episode where Richard gets an audition, and he needs to get a singing lesson. But his teacher is tour guiding, so he runs up to Times Square to book a lesson with her. And she's now we couldn't get the rights to any of this stuff, so my other friend, who's also in The Food of Love, wrote the music, and we wrote some songs. And one of the songs that we wrote was an imitation. There's a statue of what's his name, George M. Cohan, and we were meeting by the statue of George M. Cohan, so we wrote this fake George M. Cohan song called Hip Hip Hurroo to the Red, White, and Blue. And so she starts singing this song, and as she's marching off with her little group of foreign tourists, we started having people following us. And one guy, the Naked Cowboy,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the Naked Cowboy, but he's one of the people that gets money from tourists by posing in a cowboy hat and underpants and plays a guitar. And he started singing our song. He started singing Hip Hip Hooray. It was so funny. So I hope, we can, that's the second season.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're at the first 6 episodes, but they're short. They're only 10 or 15 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are just 5 minutes. So I
Okay.
tell people to sort of think of it as long commercials.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing right now. As I said, I just did a Mrs. Maisel. A couple of other people called me out of the blue, and I did a couple episodes on other people's short films or perspective web series or whatever. So there seems to be a lot of that kind of activity going on. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a special contract now with SAG where they pay you a pittance, but then if they sell it, you get your price, because they're trying to encourage these young filmmakers to use union actors. So I think that's a really good idea. You don't want to price yourself out of the market, so to speak. And I think that's where all this kind of new, young, interesting material is coming from.
Okay.
A lot of it online. But people are shooting films with their telephones,
Well, I got asked by director James Balsamo. I cameoed in 6 of his movies as of right now. I've never met him. It was just shot on my phone and emailed to him, and he splices them into his movies. In fact, the one I'm waiting for right now, I've got 2 scenes shot on my phone that are going to be watched on a television by Eric Roberts.
Oh, great.
So I'm in a movie with...
Are you playing yourself? Are you playing a radio personality?
No, I'm playing a personality, a city councilman and that, and
I see.
Pretty much just wing it, improvise, because I'm not an actor, but James Balsamo does these really cheap horror comedies, so I'm able to have more freedom because of the atmosphere he presents. So I've had him on a couple times, and I just get this message from him one night, and he asked me to shoot my own death scene for Cool as Hell 2, and I had to call him up because I was like, why me, And he said he just loved doing my show, so I was like, okay.
Great. Well, good success.
Yep. So I did that. So yeah, people are definitely doing that. Before I let you go, there's a couple other films I did want to ask you about.
Sure.
One I just discovered today. I never heard of this film, but it's got a good cast in it, and come out the same year as Smokey and the Bandit. So it kind of reminds me of Smokey and the Bandit with the CB radio thing, but Citizen Band.
Citizen's Band, that was an early Jonathan Demme film. That's how I met Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting film. That's a film that was, it had 2 plots.
Mm-hmm.
And the main plot, and it kind of was about CB radios, and it was, what's his name? He was a big agent, and he decided that he wanted to be a producer.
Okay.
And this was his big chance. Unfortunately, it didn't quite make it because, among other things, the subplot that I was in, which was about a trucker who had 2 wives and a girlfriend who was a hooker, and I was the girlfriend.
Okay.
And Anne Wedgeworth was one of the wives, and Marcia Rod was the other wife. And each wife, he had a wife on either end of the truck route.
Okay.
And what's his name played the trucker? Wonderful actor, Roger Corman actor.
Well, you had I noticed a picture. You were at a table with Charles Napier, and he's
Napier, yes.
Oh man, I like him.
I did too. I really thought he was underappreciated as an actor. I mean, he had incredible kind of charisma, and he had done all those not just Roger Corman, but that guy that did all the movies with the women with the enormous breasts and.
Oh yeah, Russ Myers. Yep.
Russ Myers. He was a kind of a underground star with Russ Myers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how Jonathan met him. But Jonathan liked him.
Yeah.
And he did some other films with him. He did, the big hit about the murderer who ate people.
I know him best as playing the lead singer of the Good Old Boys and the Blues Brothers.
Oh, I've never seen the Blues Brothers. I should see that if he's in it. He died recently.
Yeah, he did, and I always noticed him. Like, he was never what you call a lead, but man, he knew how to steal his scenes, and he was very underappreciated.
I think so. I think some actors, they get kind of sidelined into doing these exploitation films, and then people don't take them seriously.
Yeah.
But I would have used him because I really thought he was terrific, and he was really good in that. In fact, we were just much more interesting than the main theme of the film, so the film got unbalanced.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Paul
LaMatt.
Paul LaMatt and what's-her-face were the two leads.
Candy Clark. They were both in American Graffiti.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, somehow that plot line just didn't really take hold. And, but we were the subplot. So that's, the movie wasn't structured for us to be, the main plot. So I think that's what happened to that, but it was too bad. Then they had a whole thing with the names. Mm-hmm. Originally it was called Citizens Band or something like that, the Great American Citizens Band.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was called Handle with Care. So it ended up having these 3 or 4 different names, which was confusing because, it would be reviewed under one name and then they'd change the name, it would go to another city. It was somehow, in the merchandising of it, they kind of fell down.
Yeah.
And but I thought that was a really interesting movie. And then Jonathan went on and had much more success. Now he started out working for Roger Corman. He and his wife Evelyn.
Yeah.
Purcell. They started working. Did a whole bunch of films for. I believe it was Roger Corman, where they were, the kind of films where you'd have an Asian girl in the middle of the jungle.
Oh yeah.
With hardly any clothes on, fighting their way away from the gorillas, and that's kind of how they cut their teeth as directors. And then Jonathan just went on from there. And Evelyn, I think, directed 1 or 2 movies. They split up. And then I don't know what happened to her after that. Jonathan died recently, too, I noticed in the papers.
Well, I know Ted Demme had passed. I don't know, maybe.
I think he did, yeah. I think I saw it because, I was regretting that we hadn't stayed, in closer touch, because he didn't live that far away. He remarried and I think had a couple of kids, and they were living in a big loft over on just 2 or 3 blocks from me in Greenwich Village. But, I guess he was always...
Yeah, Jonathan Demme is gone, yeah. What about... and I was going to ask you about The Shadow as well.
Oh, my God, The Shadow. Well, that was another one of these, financial things. There are whole things. That movie deserved to fail, although I shouldn't say that. But they were just awful to deal with. What happened was that they kept putting it off. They'd hire me, and then they'd put it off, and then... you have to get paid. It was like I was saying about a day rate as opposed to a weekly rate or whatever. I was on a weekly, so they had to pay me anyway. And, they actually called me up and said, why don't we just forget about, we'll just pay you the days you work. And I said, of course, my agent wouldn't let me do that, and I said no. So I ended up making a ton of money from this. And I had like 2 lines. I played Peter Boyle was I was in the taxi. I was a passenger.
Yeah.
And he was driving the cab. Very nice guy. What a wonderful actor he was.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, so they were furious at me, and I was actually told that I would never work in that town again.
Oh.
And, which of course turned out to be hooey.
Yeah.
And, so I don't know, maybe I never would eat lunch in that town again. And then when I showed up, the day I showed up to shoot the thing, they said, well, because we're going to be driving fast, in the cab itself, we're going to have a stunt person.
Okay.
And I said, well, I'll do it. It's okay. You don't have to worry about it. And they said, no. Legal says we have to have a stunt person. So they come up with this stunt girl who's at least, 6 or 8 inches taller than me, and like 15 years younger, with long blonde hair. And so what they ended up doing was they made me wear a wig so I would match the stunt person. Now, this is the first time I've ever had an acting role. I'm the principal. I'm the actor.
Mm-hmm.
I have the lines, and they make me up to look like the stunt person.
Okay.
Which they didn't need anyway. So I was really upset. But I mean, you just do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, how stupid is this?
Yeah.
I mean, you get a stunt person and you put the wig on the stunt person.
Yeah.
You don't even need a stunt person. But Peter was really wonderful. So we had a good time, I must say.
Yeah.
I enjoyed working with him. And I never saw the movie.
I never saw the movie either. I'm just aware of it.
Well, it was a big flop. It was Alec Baldwin, and they thought it was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it was a big fat flop. Now, it still reruns. I still get residuals from it occasionally.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine went to see it, and I said, well, did you see me? I said, how was the scene? And she said, I dropped my popcorn. I leaned over to pick it up, and by the time I got back up, it was over. So whatever was left of that miserable role
Yeah.
was, in the time she bent down to pick up her popcorn, it was over.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. So I never bothered to go see it after that.
Well, you know what? I'm not interested in that movie either, so...
Yeah, I mean, it just was kind of more... At this point, it's sort of more like a curiosity, I think.
Yeah.
And it's too bad, because I love the Shadow, the whole idea of the radio show and all that kind of stuff. Shadow knows. But I guess they blew it. Maybe somebody will remake it.
There you go.
That's yeah. Well, let's see. Well, it's getting to be 11. I guess we better wind this up.
We are going to wind this up. You know what? It was wonderful having you come on and reminisce with me and celebrate Rock and Roll High School. I would love it if you would do a plug for my show before you pulled out.
Okay. Hi, this is Alix Elias. I played Miss Steroid, the gym teacher on Rock and Roll High School. And this is Greg Gilbert's Python's Paradise show in New Brunswick, Canada.
Thank you so much for coming on here.
Welcome. Yeah. Okay, so I hope you go and look at our Food of Love stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest thing to do is just Google Food of Love Trio.
Sure.
Food of Love Trio. Okay, good. All right, you have a great day.
God bless you, and you take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.